Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, having all kinds of technical issues this morning. My magical Monday broadcast usually is at high noon on Mondays to get us started on the right foot, get me started on the right foot. And why do I do these things? Well, before I let you know, before I talk more about that, please let me know where you're from. Please leave your comments. I'd love to hear from you. Lynn is helping me to keep an eye on those comments, and please interact and let me know what you think. And if you're seeing this right now, usually I broadcast at noon, so I think you're meant to see this right now. So it's 20 minutes later than when I usually broadcast. And why do I do this? Well, I'm a medical doctor, but I've learned in my career that our emotional health affects so much of our physicality, affects so much of our daily lives that I really can't ignore it. And I feel that this will impact us in so many different ways. And I call it a magical Monday broadcast because I know in my own life, and so many of you who I've spoken with, that these small coincidences, these what I call daily magical events, help reaffirm that there is something going on that is out of our control maybe, but is so much hinging on how we live our lives and the choices that we make. And as a medical doctor, I can't ignore how that impacts our physical health. So that's why I do these things, because I know that our emotions impact our mind, body, and spirit more than any diet I could recommend, although I could do that also, more than any vitamins that we might take. Well, I take many myself, but I feel that our emotions and the lives that we live and the challenges that we have impact us in so many different ways. So let me know where you're from, how long you've been looking at my page, and I'd love to hear from you. And what I'd like to talk with you about today is about staying youthful, being a child. And many of us will think that, well, being a child, I'm an adult. I have to act like an adult. I have to be an adult. I have to get dressed up in my adult clothes. I have to carry on my adult relationships. I have to interact in an adult way. If I act as though I'm a child, what's that going to get me? It's going to get people taking advantage of me. It's going to surely make me more vulnerable. But don't you see that when we move beyond any of these preconceived notions, which are many times controlled by what I've called our automatic brain, it blocks our access to being able to see those coincidences in our daily life. It blocks us from connecting with something much greater, which actually can lead us to great success and satisfaction and fulfillment and a purposeful life. So being a child doesn't mean acting like a fool, but what it does mean, and what it means to me, is not taking life so seriously. We have so many serious issues all around us, and I don't encourage you to turn on the news, but if by chance you do turn on the news, you're going to be blasted by so much negativity. It's going to propel you away from a childlike view of the world into a forceful adult protective mode, an adult fight or flight mode. And that's what happens with in our daily lives. So what does it mean being a child? Well, I recall last year I heard on the news some event was happening or some tragedy, I won't go into the details, occurred with somebody vacationing in one of the islands. And when the news came on, they said this man's age. And my first thought was, boy, he's kind of old. And then I realized he was the same age as me. Because it's like I have this idea, this feeling, and certainly maybe my physical body will defy me sometimes in that thought. But I had this idea, and I still do, where I feel much younger. And when I have that mentality, it allows me to go forward in my life, not doing foolish things and not doing things that I might have done when I was 20 years old. But what it does, it gives me an outlook that's much more, that's brighter, that's much more attuned to seeing the magic in our daily lives. I also have a saying that I often utter to myself when I'm feeling a little insecure or off balance, and if I'm in a social situation. I don't say this out loud, but it's going on right up here. It's vulnerability is my greatest asset. Vulnerability is my greatest asset. Now, think about that. For many of you, that may seem so contradictory to what you've been taught or what you feel about yourself. But being vulnerable can be a very attractive trait and characteristic of how you interact. And being a child actually is embracing your vulnerability. Because here you are, a little child, the whole world looks bigger. I remember playing tackle football when I was 6 years old in front of my childhood home. And I've gone back to that home, and the lawn, the front lawn is very, very small. Yet when I was 5 or 6 years old, that looked so massive to me. And we played tackle football, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, whatever it was. And it seemed so grand, so large, so grand, right? Well, as a child, the world is, you could be vulnerable, but you don't see it that way. But as an adult, if you were to embrace your inner child, so to speak, it may make you feel vulnerable, but really that could be a tremendous asset, because that tells people that you are actually fun-loving, easygoing, not too serious. Now, certainly, I look at some of my contemporaries, some of my colleagues, and they're going to the cocktail parties. Maybe they're having adult conversations or a couple martinis when they come home at night. Now, that's real adult stuff, right? Well, if you notice, a lot of the adult stuff that we get into is actually self-medicating, trying to kind of calm down certain anxieties and insecurities we have. And a lot of those anxieties and insecurities we have is our brain trying to make us fight or flee danger. But if we embrace that we're actually not in danger, and that danger that we perceive to be danger, really that vulnerability is actually an asset, it actually tricks our brain to allow us to go forward in a more confident way, in almost a silly way, but in a strong way. So does that mean I'm weak? No. That means I could be assertive, but in a childlike, fun-loving way. And that takes away from being aggressive, which is more of a adult way to handle things, or passive or passive-aggressive, where we kind of withdraw, but we kind of give that one little knife, in there to make a point. Well, those are kind of adult ways to handle things. Being a child, again, is not being weak, but it's being fun-loving. It's being able to laugh. And ask yourself, when was the last time you really had a belly laugh with somebody you really care about? And I'm not talking about, which is good, it's good for your health to watch comedies and to laugh alone. But what's really good is to have a really good belly laugh with somebody that you really care about. And I'm going to challenge you this week to find an opportunity where you can be that child again with somebody else. Not alone, but with somebody else. And just being fun-loving and carefree and silly. Because what happens is, as we go through our lives, the biggest challenges that I have found are money, health, and relationships. And believe you me, people who have money have challenges with relationships and health. People who have strong relationships have challenges with with money, or with health. It's usually 2 out of the 3. If it's all 3, that can be very overwhelming. But it's usually 1 or 2 of the 3. And those tend to be adult problems, adult challenges. Another way to handle that, and what works very well for me, every morning I do a meditation, which is really a prayer that I do. And I'm not going to, it's about 20 minutes every morning. That's part of my morning routine. And I go to a special place. And that special place, when I meditate, I go I close my eyes, I sit in a comfortable seat, and I go down about 10 flights in my head. Before I go into my special place, I visualize all those adult burdens on my shoulders, on my back. And I might, visualize a big money bag sitting right on my shoulders. And in the same visualization, I visualize myself taking that money bag full of money, heavy on my shoulders, and putting it in a suitcase and zipping up the suitcase. Then if there are people in my life who I'm concerned or worried about, I visualize them and the worry that I have about them, and I take that worry off of my shoulders and I put it in that suitcase. Then if there's something in my physicality that's bothering me, my shoulder or my hip or something, I will take that actual visualization of that part of my body, I'll take it and I'll put it in that suitcase and I'll zip it up. Then I am ready to open the doors, to go into my special place and to communicate with my inner guidance. And I don't just walk in there now. I float there because I've unburdened myself of all these adult problems, adult challenges. And I don't care how old you are. You have that childish yearning inside of you. But not only do you have that childish yearning inside of you, you actually have that child programming that had taught you what was going to be dangerous and threatening to you as an adult. You still have that in you. And that's what I call the automatic brain. And that's what most of my work is centered about, is getting you in touch with that. So you can, once that's brought up to the level of awareness and consciousness, then you can connect with that little voice that's right here in your heart. That quiet voice that speaks to you. That is who you really are. And in that voice, it allows you to know what your life is supposed to be, what you deserve to be, what you were destined to be, all that purpose and all that drive. And that will make you healthier than any medicine, any diet, any vitamin I could recommend. And that's why I'm so committed as Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, because I'm a medical doctor, but I know how much that can stand in the way, those adult problems on your back, how that can stand in the way of you achieving your ultimate health, which is a holistic health in mind, body, and spirit. So when you go forward this week, be more of a child. Have that child interest and excitement and curiosity. And also know that some of those childish fears that you might have had are actually not fears at all. You're not in danger. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when we're a child, we have inner workings that we know that certain things could hurt us. Well, what if you were in a family, let's say, where everything you did was wrong? Then you may internalize as an adult, every step you take, you feel this anxiety. Yet you knew as a child you wanted to do those things, but you were pressured not to because you were too frail or too shy or some other, and those were the danger. So anytime you became other than that you would fight and flee it. Why? Because your parents put you in a certain box, and you knew that outside of that box was unfamiliar, even though you didn't want to stay in that box. You wanted to go out and you wanted to be on the football team, or you wanted to be on the debate team, or you wanted to be more social. It was still more comfortable, even though it was uncomfortable, in that box. So you are still carrying that with you as well. Yet, what you want to tap into, you want to recognize that, but then tap into that person who you really were outside of that box. So there's a lot of things going on, and I covered a lot. But the thing I want you to remember, especially today going forward for this week, to recognize the magic in your life, you want to look through it through a child's eyes. Before you were burdened by those things that became your adult burdens, you want to unburden yourself, walk a path with childlike excitement, and see what happens. And share it with me. So until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. Thanks for joining me a little bit later. But If you were tuning in live, it means you were supposed to, because my videos usually, my live is usually at 12 noon. I started later. So if you're on here right now, I think it's because you needed to hear what I have to say. And everything I have to say is because I've lived it. I look into myself and I can talk from personal, really personal experience. So until next time, again, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. I love you and God bless you. Bye for now.